On a crisp autumn morning, the sun peeked through the canopy of vibrant orange and yellow leaves, casting a warm glow on the forest floor. Mark, an avid hiker, set out early to enjoy the tranquility of nature. The air was fresh, filled with the earthy scent of fallen leaves and the distant sound of a babbling brook. As he walked along the winding trail, he felt a sense of peace wash over him, a welcome escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. As he ventured deeper into the woods, Mark's mind wandered, contemplating the beauty of the season. Suddenly, a faint rustling sound caught his attention. Curious, he paused and listened intently. The noise seemed to be coming from a nearby thicket. Intrigued, Mark decided to investigate, carefully stepping off the path and making his way toward the sound. As he pushed through the underbrush, Mark's heart sank at the sight before him. There, caught in a cruel hunter's trap, was a young fox. Its bright orange fur was matted with dirt, and its eyes were wide with fear. The fox struggled against the metal jaws of the trap, whimpering softly as it tried to free itself. Mark felt a surge of compassion for the frightened creature. He knew he had to help. Approaching slowly, Mark spoke in a soothing voice. "Hey there, little one. It's okay. I'm here to help you." He could see the fox's body tense as it sensed his presence, but he continued to move cautiously, trying to gain its trust. Mark knelt down, keeping his movements slow and deliberate, and assessed the trap. It was a standard leg-hold trap, and he could see that the fox was in pain. Mark took a deep breath, steeling himself for the task ahead. He knew he had to act quickly but carefully. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a sturdy pair of gloves, putting them on to protect his hands. "Just hold on, buddy," he whispered, trying to reassure the fox. With gentle hands, he grasped the trap's lever and began to apply pressure, hoping to release the fox without causing it further distress. The fox whimpered again, and Mark's heart ached for the creature. "I promise I won't hurt you," he said softly. After a few tense moments, the trap finally sprang open, and Mark quickly pulled it away from the fox's leg. The young animal hesitated for a moment, looking up at Mark with wide, trusting eyes. Then, as if realizing it was free, the fox bolted into the underbrush, disappearing from sight. Mark sat back on his heels, his heart racing from the adrenaline of the rescue. He felt a mix of relief and joy, knowing he had saved the fox from a terrible fate. As he stood up and brushed off his pants, he couldn't shake the feeling of connection he had felt with the animal. "I hope you're okay out there," he murmured, glancing back toward the direction the fox had fled. Continuing his hike, Mark found it hard to focus on the beauty of the forest around him. Instead, his thoughts were consumed by the image of the young fox, its frightened eyes and the way it had looked at him just before it ran away. He felt a sense of responsibility for the creature, a bond that had formed in that brief moment of connection. Little did he know, this encounter would mark the beginning of an unexpected friendship that would change both their lives. In the days that followed the rescue, Mark found himself frequently returning to the woods, hoping to catch another glimpse of the young fox. Each hike felt different, as if the forest held a secret he was yet to uncover. He would often pause at the spot where he had freed the fox, scanning the underbrush for any sign of movement. The vibrant colors of autumn surrounded him, but his heart was still tethered to that moment of connection. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the trail, Mark began to feel a sense of longing. He had grown attached to the idea of the fox, imagining it roaming freely in the woods, perhaps even sharing its adventures with him. He decided to leave a small offering of food, a few pieces of jerky and some apples, at the spot where he had found the fox, hoping it would find its way back to him. A few days later, while sitting on his porch and enjoying a warm cup of tea, Mark was startled by a rustling sound in his yard. He turned to see a familiar figure cautiously stepping out from the trees. It was the young fox. Mark's heart raced with excitement as he recognized the bright orange fur and the white-tipped tail. The fox paused at the edge of the yard, its ears perked up and eyes wide, as if assessing the situation. Mark held his breath, not wanting to scare the fox away. He slowly reached for his camera, hoping to capture the moment. As he raised the camera, the fox took a tentative step forward, sniffing the air. Mark smiled, feeling a rush of joy at the sight of the creature he had rescued. "Hey there, buddy," he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. "I'm glad to see you." Over the next few weeks, the fox became a regular visitor to Mark's yard. Each time it appeared, Mark would leave out a small dish of food, and the fox would cautiously approach, gradually growing more comfortable with Mark's presence. He named the fox Rusty, for its beautiful reddish fur. Mark would sit quietly on the porch, watching Rusty eat, feeling a sense of companionship that he hadn't anticipated. As the days turned into weeks, Rusty began to trust Mark more. The fox would linger longer, sometimes even playing in the yard, chasing after fallen leaves or darting around the trees. Mark found himself laughing at Rusty's antics, feeling a warmth in his heart that came from their growing bond. He would often talk to Rusty, sharing stories about his day, and to his surprise, the fox seemed to listen intently, tilting its head as if trying to understand. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, Mark sat on the porch with Rusty by his side. The fox had grown bolder, resting comfortably close to Mark, who gently reached out to scratch behind its ears. Rusty leaned into the touch, a sign of trust that made Mark's heart swell with happiness. In that moment, Mark realized how much this friendship meant to him. Rusty had brought a sense of joy and purpose into his life, reminding him of the beauty of connection, even with a wild creature. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Mark felt grateful for the chance encounter that had led to this unexpected friendship. Little did he know, their bond would soon be put to the test, revealing the true depth of their connection and the lengths they would go to protect one another. As autumn deepened, the nights grew colder, and Mark found himself spending more evenings on the porch, wrapped in a warm blanket with a cup of hot cocoa. Rusty continued to visit regularly, often arriving just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The two had developed a comforting routine, with Mark sharing his evening thoughts while Rusty listened, occasionally glancing up with those bright, intelligent eyes. One particular evening, the air was crisp, and the moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the yard. Mark was lost in thought, reflecting on how much his life had changed since rescuing Rusty. Just then, he heard a rustling sound coming from the bushes at the edge of his property. Mark turned, expecting to see Rusty, but instead, he was met with a group of raccoons, their masked faces peering curiously at the porch. Mark frowned, knowing that raccoons could be mischievous and often rummaged through trash cans. He stood up, intending to shoo them away before they caused any trouble. "Hey, get out of here!" he called, waving his arms. The raccoons, startled by his sudden movement, hesitated for a moment before continuing their advance toward the trash bin. Just as Mark was about to step off the porch, he heard a familiar sound, a soft rustling followed by a series of sharp barks. Rusty emerged from the shadows, his posture tense and alert. The fox had clearly sensed the disturbance and was ready to defend its territory. Mark watched in awe as Rusty approached the raccoons, barking fiercely, trying to scare them off. The raccoons, taken aback by Rusty's sudden appearance and boldness, paused and looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Mark felt a surge of pride for Rusty, who was bravely standing his ground. "That's it, Rusty. Show them who's boss." Mark cheered, feeling a rush of adrenaline as the situation unfolded. Rusty darted forward, barking loudly and lunging at the raccoons, who finally decided that the risk wasn't worth it. They turned and scurried away, disappearing into the darkness of the woods. Mark couldn't help but laugh at the sight of Rusty, standing tall and proud, having successfully chased off the intruders. "You did it, buddy," he exclaimed, kneeling down to give Rusty a well-deserved scratch behind the ears. As Rusty returned to Mark's side, the two shared a moment of triumph. Mark realized that Rusty had not only become a friend, but also a protector. The bond they had formed was deeper than he had ever imagined. Rusty had repaid Mark's kindness in a way that was both unexpected and heartwarming. From that night on, Mark felt a renewed sense of appreciation for their relationship. He understood that their connection was built on trust and mutual respect. Rusty had shown him that even in the wild, loyalty could flourish, and he felt grateful for the chance to have such a remarkable creature in his life. As the days turned into weeks, Mark and Rusty continued to share their evenings together, their friendship growing stronger with each passing moment. Mark knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, side by side, as true companions. Little did they know, their bond would soon be tested in ways they could never have anticipated, leading them on an adventure that would change their lives forever. As winter approached, the forest transformed into a wonderland of frost and snow. Mark found himself spending more time indoors, but he always made sure to leave food out for Rusty. The fox continued to visit, though he seemed to be more cautious, perhaps sensing the change in the air. Mark enjoyed watching Rusty's playful antics as he bounded through the snow, leaving delicate paw prints behind. One evening, as Mark prepared for bed, he heard a series of loud howls echoing through the woods. His heart raced as he recognized the sound of wolves. He had heard stories about wolf packs in the area, but he had never encountered them himself. The howling sent a chill down his spine, and he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over him. The next day, Mark decided to take a walk in the woods, hoping to clear his mind. As he strolled along the familiar path, he noticed Rusty waiting for him at the edge of the trees. The fox seemed agitated, pacing back and forth, its ears perked up and eyes wide. Mark knelt down, trying to understand what was wrong. "What is it, Rusty?" he asked, concern creeping into his voice. Suddenly, Rusty darted away, glancing back at Mark as if urging him to follow. Mark's heart raced as he hurried after the fox, unsure of what was happening. They moved deeper into the woods, and Mark could feel the tension in the air. Rusty stopped abruptly, looking back at Mark with a serious expression. Just then, Mark heard it, the distant howling of wolves, closer than before. Mark's instincts kicked in, and he felt a surge of protectiveness for Rusty. "We need to get back," he said urgently, glancing around for any signs of danger. But before they could turn back, a pack of wolves emerged from the trees, their eyes glinting in the fading light. Mark's heart raced as he realized they were surrounded. Rusty stood beside him, growling softly, ready to defend his friend. Mark felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew he had to protect Rusty, but he also understood that the wolves were wild animals, driven by instinct. "Stay close, Rusty," he whispered, trying to remain calm. The wolves circled them, their howls echoing through the trees, creating an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. As the wolves approached, Mark remembered the stories he had heard about how to deal with wild animals. He stood tall, trying to project confidence, and raised his arms to make himself appear larger. "Go away!" he shouted, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. Rusty remained by his side, his fur bristling, ready to defend Mark at any moment. To Mark's surprise, the lead wolf paused, studying them with keen eyes. The tension in the air was palpable as the wolf seemed to weigh its options. After what felt like an eternity, the wolf let out a low growl and turned away, signaling to the rest of the pack. They slowly retreated into the shadows of the trees, leaving Mark and Rusty standing together, hearts pounding. As the last echoes of the wolves faded into the distance, Mark let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. He turned to Rusty, who looked up at him with a mixture of concern and loyalty. "We did it, buddy," Mark said, kneeling down to scratch Rusty behind the ears. "You were so brave." In that moment, Mark understood the depth of their bond. Rusty had not only been a friend but also a protector, willing to stand by him in the face of danger. Mark felt a profound sense of gratitude for the fox who had come into his life. They had faced a challenge together, and their friendship had only grown stronger as a result. As they made their way back home, Mark couldn't help but smile at the thought of their adventure. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he and Rusty would face them together, united by their loyalty and friendship. The winter nights might be long and cold, but with Rusty by his side, Mark felt ready to embrace whatever came next.